Hello, and welcome to Marathon Swim Stories, where we connect with marathon swimmers around the world to find out how they got started, what makes them tick, and why they keep going. It's where we explore the human side of the superhuman feats of endurance swimmers, the connections that we have with each other, our support crew, and the waters we cross. If you've ever stood at the edge of a body of water and wondered what it would be like to swim to the other side, you're in good company. I'm Shannon Keegan, marathon swimmer, water relationship coach, and founder of Intrepid Water, where I virtually teach swimming freedom. Freedom to get started, shed the confines of the pool, or your preconceived notions of what's possible. Find out more at intrepidwater.com. Hello, Marathon Swim Story listeners. It was quite a summer and has already turned to fall. There's even hints of winter some mornings. My kids are back to school, and I've been enjoying crisp morning walks, admiring the changing colors of the leaves. I wonder what it's like where you are. Let me know. I always love to hear from you. Shannon at intrepidwater.com. On the swimming front, I'm taking time to take stock of my stroke and really honing swimming as more of a practice, not so much a workout, more like yoga, seeing how I can tune more like a shape in the water and just do even a better job with each stroke on that shape. If that sounds interesting to you, I would love to chat with you. I have a 6-week virtual on-demand freestyle fundamentals course that will rock your world. I have no doubt that it will make you rethink the way you swim. I've seen participants take as many as 12 seconds off per 100, and they're consistently reducing their strokes per length. If you've been looking for a way to swim further, faster, and with ease, I highly recommend that you check it out. Go to intrepidwater.com. I had a big swim at the end of August, which I'll talk more about in a future episode, but it was an amazing testament to how far I could go with a solid technique as a foundation. If you're looking to tune your stroke as the seasons change, I would love to chat with you. Just reach out. Wow, it's been so long. I have to say that I'm out of practice. I hope that you enjoyed the 2022 summer series. While difficult to listen back and hear my newbie self at times, it was a delight to revisit the stories of these brave and daring athletes who I interviewed in 2020. There are always gems to be discovered in every single story, and I hope that you found the remix as a fun way to highlight some of them. In today's episode, I chatted with Daniel Adcock-Kirsh about his relationship with the water, all the way from growing up through to his teenage years, how he walked away from swimming for a very long time, only to return to attempt the English Channel. I hope you enjoy his story. Hello, or I guess I was going to say good morning, but good evening, Dan, right?
That's right. Yeah.
I'm so excited to talk to you today. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with the water.
Okay, I will do. Shannon, firstly, a real pleasure to meet you. As I said in my somewhat email out the blue to you a few weeks ago, I feel like the voice at least is something that's accompanied me along the way, this journey that I've been on. So to finally sit down and speak with you about it is somewhat surreal, but nevertheless, fantastic opportunity. So I'm grateful for that. And as I've said, it's great to meet you. I think a lot of people, possibly in my position, may have a bit of an imposter syndrome when I read the roll call of people who have been on your show, and I'm in awe of you and all of their achievements. And who am I? I'm just a sort of a guy from a small town in in the UK, but nevertheless started on this endeavour. So it's a great opportunity to share with you. So yeah, I think like most swimmers, my start was an inauspicious one. It consisted of my parents, specifically my wonderful mother, taking me and my two brothers to our local baths, as they called them in the UK then, or the swimming pool, but they were named the public baths, Sutton in Ashfield public baths, and literally, sort of marching us to the water's edge with a real old school teacher at the time. This is back in when I was probably about 5 years old, so 1985. But I think it was a case of almost sort of sink or swim, get in the water and off you go. And it progressed from there. So I've managed to dig out, as all parents sort of tend to do, and they found all my old swimming badges. And I've got obviously the people listening couldn't see that, but
yeah, you'll have to describe what we're seeing.
yes, that is my first ever badge, if you can see that.
That successfully completed 10 meters, right?
That's it. That is it. My first ever badge of 10 meters, which was in October 1986. Yeah, I was 6 years old, and I got my 10-meter badge, which was apparently quickly followed by a 25-meter badge. Now, I don't propose to go through every single meterage, which we may be here for some time. But it sort of quickly became apparent, if not to myself, that I just loved being in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's apparent from listening to a lot of people on here. Some people learn to swim, and they learn to swim because it's maybe something that they've been pushed into, or you need to do it for a life skill, which is really, really important, I believe. But I think a common thread or theme for people, especially on this podcast, are they not only have they got in just for that reason, but they've felt a connection with the water immediately. And it wasn't a sort of a revelatory moment. I don't think for me it was nothing as grand as that. It was just something that I enjoyed doing. And I think I've got to credit my dad a lot for that as well, Nigel, who took me and my two brothers to another swimming pool and just sort of used to, most weekends, mess around with us in the pool and got us, so we enjoyed the water. It was a source of, real fun for us and a connection with him. And because he worked a lot during the week, and it was one of the only times where we got to see him. So it was a real time of bonding with him. And it did give me some psychological issues for the rest of my life, because he'd pretend to be a shark and try and get us in the water. So I've had that swimmer's fear, irrational fear of being in a pool. So, it was just a fantastic time to be in the water, and we used to look forward to it. So jumping forward, not too far, but in the space of 2 years, I found this, or my mum sent me that.
Oh, Marathon Fun Swim 1988. So just 5 miles. Wow. So you went from just puddling around the 10-meter achievement to 5 miles. Tell us how you got there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, it was a case of just continuing swimming and continuing in that environment. And that was it. I joined as soon as I was able to join the swimming club at the local swim team. And I swam butterfly because nobody else wanted to. I think you find that in a lot of swim
It's a lot of the marathon swimmers. Yeah, they did those events that no one else wanted to do.
Absolutely.
Just a personality trait, I think.
That's it. And I did freestyle as well. And to no great standard, I eventually progressed into county level swimming, probably 15, 16 years old. I was at that level. swimming. So, it involved quite a bit of training before, swim meets before school and after school and at weekends. And the other sessions we used to do on weekends were life-saving sessions. And again, it was just great fun. I really looked forward to it because the teachers and the coaches just made it so much. It was obviously very serious. And I do recall that by no means was it a chance to turn up and mess about in the water. Not at all. It was a chance to go and enjoy yourself, but, with an underlying serious message. And again, that stuck with me and imbued a sense of respect for the water at a very early age. Because, not only should you enjoy it, but you've got to respect it, especially open water swimmers.
For me, I grew up around pools and open water was much later for me, but was the life-saving, were you then like teaching lessons and doing lifeguarding and things like that at the pool, or it was just something they taught to teenagers at these as part of the weekend events, but you didn't necessarily do it like for a job or, I don't know. What was it like for you in the UK?
That's a very good question, actually, because it wasn't part of any design to be a pool lifeguard. The reason being, I just wanted to be in the water because the lifeguards were always out the water, I wanted to be one of those in the water. And I just remember they'd be always sat watching the water. But funnily enough, it did lead to me being a beach lifeguard when I was 21 years old and I just left university.
That's great. But you're not really swimming at this point, or are you just swimming for fun?
That's right. It was about 16, 17. And I started playing soccer a bit more and those kinds of sort of activities and mountain biking and things generally where I didn't have to be in a pool at 6 a.m. became my predominant interests. So I think just before university, so I went to university at the age of 18 to the age of 21, I think I stopped swimming altogether.
Oh, yeah. It's common, I feel like, for some people.
That's it. I just didn't do it at all. And I had no desire to swim. It was my sort of introduction to open water swimming. And I think this feeds into that mantra, about enjoying the water and what it gives you. We had some fantastic teachers at my school who were really into, or a few of them were into their outdoor pursuits, which wasn't a real common thing at the school I went to and the sort of area I grew up in. And they were, as I've said, they were really into, sort of getting out and there's a place, I'm sure you've heard of the Lake District in the UK. And every year they take a select few students who wanted to go, and it would end up only being out of a school of maybe 1,000 people. There'd only be about 20 who wanted to go. And I remember going with my cousin and a few friends, and we went to a place called Loughrig Farm, which is near a place, Loughrig Tarn. And it's a beautiful tarn lake, small lake. Not a lake as in, I imagine in the US would consider a lake because of the size.
Size, yeah. We might call it a pond here. I don't know.
That's it. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. But we would go ostensibly in the morning to have a wash. That was the fun of it. They'd take us and we'd go down and we'd all jump in and have that would be our wash for the day. I remember we all went down there. It was a really nice day and one of those where mists rising off on the water. And I remember jumping in from rocks, and all my friends were there, and they were clinging to these rocks and dipping their toes in, and because they weren't swimmers, to put it shortly. Whereas I was, and I had the freedom to swim out, and I remember swimming out into the middle of this tarn, and just looking around and being just amazed at this. I was 15, maybe 14, 15, just having this freedom. Fast forwarding again, and if I had that period of time and where I didn't swim, and just going back to the lifeguard story, a friend of mine, my best friend, a very good friend of mine, Toby, he went to university in a place called Swansea in Wales, which has got some beautiful beaches. There's a swim that you can do, a channel swim actually, between North Devon and South Wales called the Bristol Channel Swim. And I think that's one of the original Triple Crown. Toby, he'd finished for the summer and he got a job with the local council. And he said, I've seen an advert for beach lifeguards. They're looking for beach lifeguards. And bearing in mind, I'd never properly swam in the sea at this point. I was 21 years old. I'd swam in the sea, but I'd never properly swam any distance at all. So again, with the sort of impetuousness of youth or a bit older at that time, I said, perfect. Yeah, I'll apply. I'm sure I'll get the job. And, that's it. That's us for the summer. And Swansea's, quite away from Nottingham. So I went down to stay with him. I applied for the job. You had to do I think it was a half a mile sea swim in under 12 minutes, I think it was. And then you had to do some running on the beach. You had to do update all your safety qualifications and life-saving qualifications. Mine had lapsed because, I'd not, but that didn't take long to sort of do it. It was the sea swim. Because I turned up on the beach and I had a pair of shorts and goggles, and there were all these kids and people my age, some a bit older, who I eventually got to know, most of them, who were, what a great group of people. I mean, absolutely fantastic locals. And honestly, they took me under their wing so much. It was just fantastic. But I turned up on the beach on this first training session. They're all in their wetsuits, all sort of looking like, professionals. And I'm like, I've got a pair of shorts, not even jammers or trunks. They were just shorts. And I sort of swam out into Caswell Bay on the Gower Peninsula and sort of thinking, what am I doing? Anyway, I started swimming. And when I got back to the beach, Toby, who'd come down with me, he said there were a few spotters on the beach, part of the lifeguard crew, that was keeping an eye on me. And I kept disappearing from view, allegedly. And they thought they were going to have to send somebody out for me. But again, I think a bit of determination in me. I just wouldn't give up. I had to resort to breaststroke a couple of times. I swam over a huge lion's mane. It didn't get me. But I remember looking down thinking, what is that? But I need to speed up a bit because I don't want to get caught by that. And I did it. I did it in about 11 minutes, 53 seconds. The cutoff was 12. And then I had a fantastic summer, sort of beach lifeguarding. It was absolutely, it's fantastic. It just sort of reiterated and reminded me of this connection with the water, if that doesn't sound too, trite or whatever.
What is swim freedom? It's the freedom to start swimming when you don't think you have the skill, ability, or time. The freedom to swim with ease. The freedom to enjoy your time in the water. The freedom to swim further than you ever thought possible. What's holding you back? Let's talk about it. Shannon at intrepidwater.com. Were you just swimming kind of to maintain your lifeguard ability, or were you doing any kind of distancing swimming at this point?
No, no distancing. It was literally a case of going, and I think I did that swim on pure muscle memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just getting in and going, well, I can swim, so surely I can do this, And after 3 strokes and 3 mouthfuls of water,
seawater, right?
Yeah, you think, right, okay. This is a bit different. But, nevertheless, I remember finishing it and thinking, what a sense of achievement and what an opportunity it gave me. But again, from then on, I didn't really swim again, probably until I moved to Manchester that I started swimming.
What was the impetus to go back to the water?
It was starting to gain some popularity in the UK around then. And knowing I could swim, but having not swam for such a long time, I didn't have anything, any grand goals in my mind. I just wanted to go. And this new open water swimming thing that, I'd found and became aware of. And I've got one of those personalities where I sort of had to try it out. It's, the sense of adventure. But yeah, I went, and probably in somewhere around 2017, which introduced me to, and I think they've been mentioned on your podcast before, You Swim in Manchester. So they run one of the sessions there at Dock 9 in Salford Quays. I just went down there and started swimming just maybe 10, 15 minutes and loved it. So that was it. And that it was a case of just continuing to go down to those sessions. And the more you go, the more you meet people, the more you talk to them, and the more you get better, and you get a better feel for the water. And that led me on to another organization called Swim Smooth. And I started going, again, getting sort of knowing familiar faces. And they started talking between themselves about some of the swims they were doing, 10-kilometer swims, and it honestly, it blew my mind that somebody could swim 10 kilometers. That's mind blowing that somebody can do that in open water and stay in the water for 3 hours or whatever. But it also gave me this huge sense of, or it appealed to my sense of adventure, because some of the locations they talk about, it just sounded, amazing. And I remember one guy had done the Alcatraz swim. What a fantastic swim. And there are challenges with that, but that's not a huge distance, is it?
It's only like 1.5 miles or something. It's not that far, but it's more, there's currents, and you're in the bay, and yeah, and it's Alcatraz, whatever. There's a lot of, it's iconic in some way, that way.
Yeah. And when the guy mentioned it, again, I was just in awe of these challenges that people did or can do and were doing. And I continued with the squads. And then, of course, what happened was COVID at the start of 2020, when I was just getting, into finding my water wings again, and, going to the sessions regularly.
Your kids must have been little at this time too, right?
Yes.
How are you finding time for that?
Yeah, well, that's it. So you just can't do any of this. The endeavours that I've sort of undertaken, especially the channel swim, just impossible without my wife. You're absolutely right that having that support network, it just would have been absolutely impossible without it. So on that, very quickly, that when lockdown came, Lucy and Cal's continued the sessions, but we did Zoom sessions. So we did weekly pool sessions, but by Zoom. And it was fantastic. It was just a great way for everybody to keep, together and keep that sense of community. And then eventually everything started opening up again. And, I sort of, because we were outdoors at Salford Quays with You Swim, I continued that as soon as I was able to. So I was able to pick it up quite quickly again and get not huge distances in. But by this point, I'd sort of done maybe 2, 3, 4 kilometers I'd got up to. And I went on another hero of sort of my channel swim is my brother-in-law called Ari, who crewed for me. But there's a story behind that. Because we went on a camping trip to the lakes, typical August bank holiday weather, with an tail end of an Atlantic storm had blown in. And the plan was to camp at a beautiful campsite between Buttermere and Crummock Water, which are two of the lakes, the northern lakes, smaller ones. Everybody's familiar with, Windermere, which is the 10.5 mile where I did my qualifier. And there are other lakes bigger than Buttermere. Buttermere is 2 kilometres. Crummock is 4 kilometres long. But there's no motorcraft allowed on those two lakes. They're sort of still part of the pristine lakes, as they say. So there are conditions in being there. You can swim them, but you need a license for any craft on there. So I found this gentleman, Tony Mackenzie, and because I didn't have a canoe, my brother-in-law didn't have a canoe, and we're thinking, how do I swim this lake without, because I'd heard about on your podcast, you need a support boat, and I wasn't going to do. I was going to do it properly. I should sort of add in there. About around this time when I'd started thinking and taking it seriously, I'd started dabbling, dipping my toe in the podcast world, and and different ones, and Anyway, we hired a canoe off Tony, told him why we wanted it and what we were thinking and what I was thinking of doing. Because that's what prompted it. In June 2020, I bit the bullet and I emailed a boat captain, a boat pilot for the channel, because I'd done a bit of research beforehand and I'd mentioned it to a few colleagues at work who were swimmers, the guy who was going with me, and I could tell they were sort of humouring me because I'd suggested a relay. Let's swim the channel, guys. We can all swim. How about a relay? And yeah, of course, let's do it. But with no real enthusiasm behind it. So I just thought, well, I want to do it. It's something I've always thought about. And I have this I was sort of quite apprehensive about the challenge. It scared me, to put it bluntly. And it was a ridiculous notion almost to swim the channel at that time. But I'd been around enough people and heard about these swims. And I thought, well, why not just give it a go? So I emailed the boat pilot and heard nothing more. I emailed a guy called Kevin Sherman, who pilots the Connemara out of Folkestone. And yeah, that was it. That was June 2020. I sort of forgot all about it then, because you have to book a tide, as 2 years in advance, and COVID obviously, so that people were sort of trying to get on their swims. And I just thought, because Karen had put me in touch, Karen Quartermain, Karen and Dave run USwim. Karen had mentioned this was the pilot they ordinarily use, and he's great, and what have you. Yeah, absolutely right. So I just emailed him. She said maybe pick 2 or 3. But I thought, well, no, I'm just going to go for this one. And if he doesn't get back to me, he doesn't get back to me. I don't swim the channel. There you go. Forget it. So I did that, and as I said, we planned this swim, me and my brother-in-law in Buttermere. He very gamely came along with his friend and absolutely poured it down for the whole weekend pretty much. My swim wasn't too bad when I started, but it was the first time I'd swam in open water in a lake without a safety boat per se. I mean, I had my brother-in-law, as I've said, but at Salford Quays that USwim, they have proper safety boats and canoeists and paddle boarders and a proper motorboat looking out for you. And there's also maybe 200 other swimmers in the water going around at the same time, so you never feel like
you're not by yourself.
Yeah, this is it. So I did that swim, but I remember getting in and seeing, I was skins by this time, I was swimming skins by this time, because up until that point I've been swimming open water in a wetsuit, because I was doing a lot more winter swimming, like New Year's Day, USwim doing a New Year's Day swim, and getting in 5-degree water for as long as you can bear it. So, but that was all wetsuit assisted. So I can't remember when it was exactly, but the first time I took it off, I don't think I've put it on again since, really. So I did this swim, and I remember pushing off from shore and swimming out, and all of a sudden I couldn't see the bottom, and it was cold, it was a bit choppy, and I thought, the cold water shock plus this apprehension, I just had to stop, turn around, grab my swim safety table, and Aaron had just sort of caught up, and he said, everything all right? Yeah, fine. I'm just taking it all in. And I didn't want to say to him, I'd sort of dragged him all this way, and his friend, that I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I've got it in me. But I sort of put that thought to one side. I don't know what it was. Again, I think we're all the same. We're probably all, us open water swimmers have that, who've gone any distance. There is that moment where you say, what am I doing? Why am I here? I don't have to be. I could be somewhere much more, warm and cozy, and
cup of tea, eating some cake with your feet up, watching some football.
Exactly that. Exactly. I remember 2 swimmers went off before me in wetsuits and fully, wetsuit hats and gloves and boots. I was just there in my jammers, and I swam one way. The plan was to do 2-way, but the chop really picked up on the second half. As I said, this tail end of this Atlantic storm came in, and the weather really worsened. But the 2, they wouldn't know this at the time, but I could see their floats, the fluorescent orange in the distance. I was sort of, at least, well, if they're in here, they're doing it, I can do it. Anyway, we got to the other end, and they sort of drying off, and I sort of got out and sort of looking at them. Have you just done that in skins? I was like, Yeah. I've no idea of the water temperature, but it was cold. It was it was very cold. But anyway, yeah, that was the first sort of swim outside the confines of Salford Keys.
Yeah, it's a big deal, especially if you've got the channel on your horizon.
Well, exactly that, exactly that. So then I through 2020, I carried on swimming, and I then got into 2021. I was just carrying on doing relatively far distances in my mind at the time, 5K swims, maybe a 7K swim, or what have you, but I've never got to that marathon swim. In my mind, 10K, that was it. I wasn't a marathon swimmer. I would not. I purposely, and I couldn't ever refer to myself as a marathon because I've not done a marathon swim. I've not hit a 10K. And I think it was probably sometime in early 2021. So it was in December 20. I contacted Karen and I said, look, I sort of emailed Kevin Sherman and I want to swim the channel. She was like, right, great. I can do a plan for you. Just tell me what you want from us. We'll put something together and we'll take it from there. So they did. They put together a plan and they sent through, well, not a swim plan, but a proposal of what they were doing, what we'd do, and the associated costs of that. And that sort of made me think, this is a real undertaking. This isn't something I can just say, yeah, why not give it a go? If it happens, it happens. If not, it's nothing ventured, nothing gained. It was a real commitment, time, financial. I have a demanding job I had at the time, working all hours, 2 young children. Ivy my youngest would have been maybe 18 months. Carmen 5. Of course, home life was very, very busy. And the most understanding, forgiving wife that you possibly wish for, who, once I said it to her, she knew that's what I was going to do. And I've heard you talk about it before when you decided something or whatever, and you have that network around you. And as soon as you mention it, I've got Marcia Cleveland's book, Dover Solo, that my wife bought me. It scared me a bit, that book, when I read the training that Marcia. Wow, I mean, but the distances she was talking about in there, 70 odd K a week, I didn't get up to that. But anyway, so I said to Karen, and she sent me this through, and I really think about it. And anyway, it took me till April of 2021 from this proposal being sent to me in December to say, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm committed. From then on, I was on this training plan that Karen set me, because I said, look, I want you to do everything, because they'll do milestone swims for you. They'll do a weekly plan for you, or just a milestone swim plan. So I said, I want everything. I'm a typical guy. I just want everything doing for me, and I'll do it. But I just want,
someone to tell you what to do. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Tell me what to do, and I'll do it.
Had you heard from the boat? Did you have a date at this point yet? No. You're just training.
Yeah, it's just training. I'd not heard at all. Karen asked me, have you heard from him? And I said, no. She said, don't worry. He'll be busy. He'll be taking people out. He'll have got it. But you'll probably get an email maybe later in the year in 2021, which turned out to be the case. And it was April 2021 when I started my plan. And I think it was a 40-minute swim in the Keys. It was 9 degrees in the water. So what's that? That's 48.2 Fahrenheit, as I understand it. And it sort of progressed from there. 1st of May, I did, again, my first milestone swim. That was a 40-minute swim, 30-minute on land, and then a 50-minute swim. So we sort of, break up your session. That was 11 degrees, 51.8 Fahrenheit. So again, quite cold. And then the first big swim in my training plan was on the 15th of May in 2021, which was a 2-hour swim, 2-hour non-stop swim. 12 degrees, the water, so 53 Fahrenheit. And I was cold. The first hour I fed after an hour, and I was shivering. I can remember just really shivering. Thought, I've got another hour of this. It was painful. It was everything that we've all been through on those kinds of swims. Why am I doing this? You're in Salford Keys going round, and I was swimming with a few other swimmers who were doing a bit longer, and I just was looking at them enviously. They were just like, yeah, obviously they've climatized into maybe 2-3 year plans. And there were some channel swimmers in there who'd done it a few years previous. And I just remember looking at them in awe, regarding them in awe, because they were just able to do it. One of the guys who did it, Danny Ralph, I just thought was this absolute machine. He'd done a few channel swims. He actually did a canoe pilot for me on a 10-hour swim that I did in Bournemouth in June this year. So, it all came round, so at this time I sort of, nobody was standoffish, but I was just in awe of these people. I was like, whoa, and I got out after 2 hours and couldn't speak. Karen had to tie my shoelaces for me. I was sort of, we've been there, and I remember thinking, oh, great, I've done it. And then I saw Karen the next week, and she said, oh yeah, you were pretty cold, weren't you, after that swim last week? And yeah, I was. It was a real. And again, at that time, you're thinking, how can I swim for 12, 14, 15 hours in temperatures that may be like this? Such a long way. So, as in the distance from doing 2 hours and to that. Conceptually, I think it's very difficult for you to see that.
Yeah, and you have to believe that the course you're on will get you there, and that takes a huge leap of faith. I think there's a lot of people that they don't even get into the 2-hour swim, nonetheless, stick with it. So, what do you think it takes to just keep at it?
Yeah, very good question. Number one, there has to be an intrinsic desire for you to want to do those things. Without that, it will not happen. I'm a believer it will not happen. You can have all the external motivation in the world, quotes and people, training you in this, but if it's not there internally, it will not happen. You've got to want to do it. And that's like you said, that's a real sort of conceptual leap to do it. And I just wouldn't have done it without the support of those sort of people around me, and knowing that there was, but having this, and again, I think this mantra has been mentioned on this podcast before, is trust the process.
Mm-hmm.
Karen would drum that into me. She'd done this plan for me, and she said to me, this plan has got channel swimmers across. If you follow this plan, you will swim the channel. And it was an investment from her, from me, from other people that you swim, of course, your family and everything, that to buy in wholeheartedly to that process. And I didn't overswim. Like I said, when I read Dover Solo, I was thinking, well, why am I not doing 71k a week? I'm doing 20, 26, maybe 28 maximum. And I had these fears and again, these imposter sort of syndromes about, well, I'm not, doing that. Will I ever get to do that? But I did. I absolutely trusted, the process. So, yeah, I had all these swims, these various milestone swims, and building up, into the winter. And again, I stopped all open water swimming from September, I think, to April in 2021 to 2022, because you can't get any distance in the UK in most places in water of 10 degree left or less. There's just no point, because you'll be in it for 10, 15 minutes. And, my plan was building distance, technique that you can do in the pool. So I was back in the pool, and I made sure, I think I was doing between 4 and 5 sessions a week, varying distance between maybe 18 to 28 kilometers of various drills, speed sets and what have you. And I just made sure I didn't miss a session. And again, thanks to my wife for putting up with that, because again, without that support from her enabling me to do this, and we've all got that to an extent, that support behind you, how would I manage to do that? It's not just the swimmer buying into this whole thing. There's a whole, whether it's vocal support or support that doesn't show itself easily or easily, whether purposely or not, there's got to be support around the swimmer. Fast forward it to this year, and the sort of building up of the open water, and did my qualifier in October last year, which was a 6-hour swim in Windermere. It was 13.8 degrees, which is 55 Fahrenheit. So I did the swim, got out, finished at about 5 o'clock, and then I had to pick Carmen up from gymnastics an hour and 45 minutes away. So jump in the car, quick shower. I didn't feel too bad, thankfully, and drive home an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes to pick her up. And then you sit with all the other parents, who were picking their children up, and you don't say anything, because why would you walk in and say, I've just done a 6-hour qualifier?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, very surreal. So life had to sort of work in tandem, and it's a difficult thing to do. So anyway, yeah, I sort of did that, and then I had my other milestone swims. One was an 8-hour overnight swim in Windermere, and by this point I was sort of really building up the distance, so I was fine.
When did you settle on the boat and then take us there?
So yes, I got the date through eventually, the 27th of June, which happened to be my wife's birthday.
Oh boy.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You know what we're doing for your birthday? Oh, I'm doing for your birthday next year. I'm swimming the channel. Hooray! So yeah, that was rather amusing. Anyway, we got the date through, and I planned my crew. It was going to be my brother, my personal trainer, Callum, which sounds very grand, but I go and see him once a week. I do calisthenics. I swear by calisthenics. And then my younger brother, phones me, Jonathan. He says, because he hurt his knee playing football, soccer, he had to have an operation. And it was 3 weeks before my boat, my tide. He said, I might be all right. I said, you will not be all right by then. So anyway, I had to go back to Harry, because originally I was asking my brother-in-law, Harry, to go on the boat. And then I had to sort of say to him, no, I've got somebody else. And that was a bit awkward. And then I had to phone him up. I knew he'd be all right. But nevertheless, he did. As I said, he was one of the heroes of the swim. And yeah, he agreed to be my crew. So originally it was me, Karen, Callum, and Aaron on the boat. And then there was Graham Miller, who was the observer, and Kevin Sherman, who was the pilot. So I booked an Airbnb in Folkestone for the 26th, which was a Sunday, through to the 30th June, which was my birthday, because I thought that'll be it. I'll be on the way home celebrating or not, as the case may be. So I booked this Airbnb, and we get down there. The first day, Aaron comes down with D&V. If you know what D&V is, yeah. Sickness and diarrhea, basically.
Okay.
He brought it from his child. The worst thing for a swimmer. I could have coped with a cold, a cough, but that, gastroenteritis or anything like that, you just can't do it. So Aaron, bless him, was panicking, and he sort of kept himself away from me. It was just me and him in an Airbnb apartment. Luckily, it had 2 separate bathrooms. And he was disinfecting everything, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, just please. Every time I ate something, I thought, do I feel ill, or is that okay? Anyway, that swim got blown out, so there wasn't I couldn't get a tide, because even though we went down there and the weather was absolutely fantastic, we couldn't get a tide. Again, just I've got to go back. Just 2 weeks before the swim, I did a week in Bournemouth with Durley Sea Swims, a group down there. And Ali, who runs that, ended up saving the day for my crew. She's swam the channel before. She's done loads of crewing. Ali Budnikovic. She was 11th hour hero. So I did a week down in Bournemouth. Fantastic weather. Bournemouth on the south coast in the UK. Beautiful beach. And I was there for 5 days, I think. And I did a 5-hour swim. It was split, 2.5. That was Monday. Tuesday, I did a 6-hour swim. Wednesday was a break. Didn't do anything. And then Thursday was a 10-hour swim. And Karen had given me all these pointers about one of my sessions in the pool was a 2-hour swim, and you get faster every half an hour. And she said the last half an hour, that's when you're pushing for France. Visualize that, So I did on this 10-hour swim. I got to the 8th hour, and I really pushed it. So I'd done all the training that had been asked of me when I sort of arrived in Folkestone. Met Kevin for the first time, and we got chatting and this, that, and the other. We got blown out, so we had to drive back to Manchester, which is a 5-hour drive, 5.5-hour drive from Folkestone, to sit and wait it out. I was back at work. I had to go back to work because I booked off those days. I went back early, so I didn't use up all my leave, because I'd used that week of leave up. Again, just things like that, using your annual leave,
right?
Instead of not going on holiday with your family, And anyway, it got to a couple of days before and obviously the anticipation is building, and you're getting quite nervous about it, and what have you, and you've been blown out, and people say, oh, don't worry, you look ready, you know, this, that, and the other, but you just never feel as if you are, and you just don't know what's going to happen until you're on the day. So just before, it was on the Friday, I think it was, the Friday after the swim should have been, and I got a call from Dave Quartermain, Karen's wife, who's another fantastic, you know, one of the coaches down at U Swim. And he gave me some really bad news, because in my mind, I couldn't do the swim without Karen on the boat. I just couldn't, because she'd been there at every step. You know, she'd been there with everything, all the training. I couldn't envisage it without her. And anyway, unfortunately, gave me some bad news, and some personal circumstances come up. And I remember coming off the phone thinking, you know, straight on the phone to my wife and told her, and I was like, what do I do? And she said, you just carry on. You just do it. You've done the training. Karen will be there for you. This, you know, and she was. But anyway, so then Callum couldn't make it because he'd taken. So of my original crew, I only had one. So I was thinking, all best laid plans, because I'm a bit of a planner. So yeah, I arrived on the day, but Karen phoned me and she said, look, you remember Ali from Bournemouth, from Durley Sea Swim? She can do it. At last minute, she can come down and crew for you. And I mean, what a lifesaver, you know, literally sort of stepping at the 11th hour and agreeing to do that. She lives down in Bournemouth, about an hour and a half to 2 hours maybe from Folkestone. But she came down. So I got the call on the following Sunday, which was the 4th of July. And 12 o'clock lunchtime, Karen phoned me and said, right, Kevin's phoned me. You're on. You're swimming at 1 o'clock tonight.
Oh, wow.
I was in Manchester. So, yeah, Mr. Planner out the window.
No. Test
exactly.
your planning, this open water swimming does.
It really does. So, you know, a message to anybody out there who's thinking about it, and, you know, plan by all means, have it to the letter, you know, but be prepared for it all to go out the window at the last minute, because invariably it will. And I'd read the stories and I'd listened on the podcast about, you know, the channel and well, all channel swims, because you're in open water, you're in the ocean. It doesn't go by your set times.
Yep. I think that's half the appeal for planner types, is that like we need to be tempered, you know, like without consciously we want to plan it all and control it all. But like there's something about us that kind of requires the like face that, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it is. That's exactly right. And it sort of, it did throw me. I really did. But when Karen, as I said, she phoned me up and in the circumstances that, you know, just above and beyond, and told me she got Ali and everything would be fine. It meant me phoning Aaron, my brother-in-law, and saying, right, we need to be in Folkestone tonight. We're in Manchester, 5.5 hour drive. And
by the way, can you drive so I can have a nap?
Exactly. Exactly that. So again, what a hero. Sort of, yeah, he was fine. Let's do it. Come around when you're ready and we'll go. And we did. Got down to Folkestone, I think, at about 6 o'clock in the evening. So we got down there and we sat at the harbour in the car. I had a little nap, as you said, and not really, you know, a fitful sort of sleep. Wasn't a sleep. It was, no, you know, you sort of lay there.
Close your eyes. That's all you can do.
Yes, exactly. And I think I have maybe a bit of food, maybe a bowl of porridge. And then we sat and waited for the pilot to arrive, which he did, I think, as I said, about 9-10ish at the harbour in Folkestone. It was a nice day, which was good. But again, all you can think about is, I've got this swim at 1 a.m. I'm setting off at 1 a.m. You know, what's going to happen? Gets to about 12 o'clock and we got on the boat. We set off from Folkestone Harbour to near Samphire Hoe, just below Abbott's Cliff, I think, from where Marcia Cleveland set off from the same beach, I think, or I was just a bit further down the coast. And I remember it was sort of pitch black, 1 a.m. They put the lights on me, greased me up, Aaron greased me up. They shone the torch, the spotlight into the water, and that's all you could see. See the headlights, you know, the lights on the cliffs, but nothing else. But you've got no time to think, am I going to do this? Because Kevin, the pilot, you know, again, they've been there and done it. sort of many
they
times.
Probably every person is like,
exactly.
They're just like push you off. Like, come on.
Exactly that. What are you waiting for? Nothing.
It's not going to warm up.
Exactly. This is just the biggest undertaking of my life. But anyway, I'll get it. But, it's like, get in, come on. So he was never that brusque, but he was, it was just an everyday thing for them. It's what they did, get in the water. Come on. Swim to the beach there. Can you see it? No. I'll just head for we'll point the light in the direction of where you need to swim. But I remember getting in and thinking, temperature's not too bad. This is all right. I'm okay. It was 16 degrees on the day, which is 60.8 Fahrenheit. Anyway, get in the water and I was swimming to the beach and I could sort of see this little spotlight that they were aiming at the beach. I was trying to head for that, but of course, it's quite big chop. It's high tide. You can't time your breathing because you can't see the waves. You're getting smacked in the face with sort of waves, every other second, every other breath.
You haven't even started yet.
Haven't even started yet. And you think, what is going on? So disorientated. Couldn't see the beach, but I could hear under the water the waves crashing on the pebble beach. Mm-hmm. So I was like, right, just aim for that. Just aim for where that sound's coming from. So I just put my head down and just sort of swam, maybe, I don't know, it's only a couple of minutes. And I didn't actually get, swim up onto the beach. The wave just sort of regurgitated me onto the beach. The waves spat me out onto the beach. And I was like, oh, there it is. There's the shore, face full of pebbles. And I was like, this, I had all in mind this glorious start to a channel swim, but no, nothing of the sort.
Face full of pebbles, and then you get to go back out in it.
That's it. So you stand clear, horn goes. And they said, swim to the boat. So I swam to the boat. And at that time, I was aware there were other boats out. As it turned out, there were 10 other boats out on the day. I got in and you're swimming out to the boat and you're thinking, I can't do this. This is ridiculous. Wow. But you have that on pretty much most of your big swims, I think. And I'd visualized on each of my swim, even going around Salford Quays, I'd visualized finishing, getting all scratched up on Category A. I'd sort of, that was coming into the end of a 6-hour swim in Salford Quays. I was like, this is how it's going to feel, and at the end of it. And I thought, I've just got to put all that to good use. All of this training, I'm physically able to do this. So I gave myself a little milestone. I'll swim to my first feed. If you want to give up at your first feed, you never do. You never would. No. But you've got it in your mind.
You've got to get out. Yeah.
Yep. So I did that and I got to my first feed. And my next feed, my next milestone, not my next feed, because then I dropped my feeds to every hour, was swim to the sunrise. But I knew it was going to be a nice day. The weather forecast was it was going to be a lovely day, clear skies. Because of, and again, I've heard on this podcast and in books about this channel sunrise. I was like, swim to that. You owe yourself to see this sunrise. And it was everything that had been described. It was absolutely, it was magical. It really was. It was, you had the dawn, just this soft light of dawn comes up from the east. You don't see the sun, it's like that. Twilight for sort of just maybe an hour or two, gradually gets lighter and lighter, and it's mesmeric. It really is. And it just that psychological boost of knowing the sun is about to sort of pop over the horizon is just, I couldn't say how much of a boost that that was to me at the time. And it was everything that I'd heard. It was just absolutely beautiful. It really was. And then of course everything starts lighting up around you, and you start seeing the outline of the people on the boat, and you start thinking, and I had this in my mind, how lucky am I to be doing this? This is an absolute privilege. I'm the luckiest person in the world being able to do this now. And I had that mindset because above anything, I was saying to myself, not just in there, not just in this channel, but on other big swims, on my 8-hour swim and my Bournemouth swims, enjoy the process. Not just trust the process, enjoy the process. So anyway, going back, and I'm sort of the sunrise, and it comes up, and it is everything that they say. It is magical. And after the sun had come up, in my mind, the next thing that I did, psychological trick, was I split the remainder of the swim up into sort of the maximum of swimming. I split it into, say, 4 4-hour swims. I didn't expect to be swimming that long, but I thought, well, a 4 hour swim, I can do that easily. That's not, that's nothing. So you do that, but it helped massively. But this time the sea had calmed down a lot because the chop in the first 2 hours was 3 hours was quite bad. Anyway, the water calmed down, the sun came up, and I was in that mind frame of this is just the best thing ever. I was swimming with a smile on my face. Jellies, in terms of the jellies, I was always a bit, because I'd never been stung by a jelly up until that point. So I'm swimming along anyway, and felt a nettle sting on my shin, sorry, on my calf. I'm like, oh, right, okay, there you go. I'd heard that jellies were there and I expect it's going to happen. I'd seen some people who I'd spoken to with quite bad, rashes. Carry on swimming, next one on my forearm. I felt it. Oh, well, like a nettle sting. That's fine. And so I'm having a bit of a joke. Okay, you've got me now. That's enough. In your head, you do. Then the next one, I feel a big one on my shoulder. Big sort of splat on my shoulder. I'm like, well, it's getting a bit close now, guys. Come on, let's give it a rest, please. And as I said that, I looked up and I got one smack in the face. Yeah. Luckily, it wasn't a bad sting. It just felt a bit, like I say, a bit of a nettle rash across my face.
Yeah, man.
But I was in the mindset that I just went, right, that is it, guys. You come on. You've had
making it a game, right?
Correct. I was like, because I was almost anticipating it. I was always sort of not looking forward to it because that's totally the wrong sort of. But I was sort of like, right, come on, where are these jelly? Let's do it, get it over with. And that point, I was like, right, that's enough. I don't want any more. You've had your fun. Leave me alone. And I didn't get one more for the whole. And that was maybe 4 or 5 hours into the swim. So yeah, I then had sort of after the sunrise, I had an 8 hour period of just brilliant swimming. Not me being a brilliant swimmer, just brilliant swimming. I was holding something back. I always sort of do because, in all my CSS tests, Karen and Kaz and Lucy would always say, you're holding something back. What is it? Don't, but I always would anyway. So I had this 8 hour period of just glorious weather, sightseeing in the channel, big containers and ferries and all of this sort of going by me and everything that you hear about on these swims. Keeping up, getting my feeds in, maybe 30-second feeds or, maximum of a minute because I had some naproxen before I set off, which is relatively strong painkillers, so that would keep me sort of pain-free in inverted commas for 10 hours or whatever. Because I had a little niggle in my shoulder, again, not uncommon to right. Swimmers. So I continued on the swim. As I've said, it was just water sparkling and all of this. The feeds were coming. Ali and Aaron had got over his little bout of seasickness to start with, only a little bit, because he was disorientated, he said, in the darkness. And I can imagine, because they say, look at the horizon. He couldn't see it. So he was sort of... Ali, what a fantastic, support she was. She was able to decide things like when to drop my feeds and, to shorten my feeds from 400 mil, because I was taking 400 mil of Maxim. No, I was doing 400 up until like the week before the channel, and then I decided I'd do 500. That's just too much in one feed, because I was sort of trying to take it all, but I couldn't get it. Yeah, I had them every hour, and then they dropped me to 45 minutes with I think it was about 2.5 hours to go to the coast. You can see Cap Grenay, can't you? You'll have heard the stories. You can see France, for about 5 hours before you hit it. Comes into view, and you're like, there it is. The end is in sight, and it's not. You've got another 5 hours swimming, and it doesn't seem to get any closer, and it doesn't. And eventually, I got close to the cap, and you can see the lighthouse on the cap, and it was to my right. And in the space of 10 minutes, it was I'd gone way to the left of it. I was on the right of it, and I'd gone way to the left of it. And basically, long story short, I'd missed it. I'd missed the cap, because they were trying to get me on the cap, but I'd missed it because the tides. Ali told me afterwards, there was a really, really strong tide that picked up on around the cap, an unusually strong tide, and the winds really picked up. And that was the only time when I looked up and I could see myself going, and I could see the coast dropping away. And I thought, I had literally a split second, brief moment of putting my head in the water and shaking my head, thinking, I'm not getting any closer. I've been swimming for 12 hours. I don't know what I've got left, but if I don't get a move on, I'm going to. But then I went, there's no way I'm going to not complete this. There is no way I've got this far and I ain't getting into France. And going back to my training sessions, Karen, as I said, did these 2 hour sessions for me, where you build up your speed every half an hour for 2 hours. So I got to my last feed. Ali then said to me, Dan, I think you've got a mile left. And I knew I could do a mile in half an hour if I sprinted or it pushed. And I thought, well, I've done this every other Sunday during the winter. I've got this. I can do this. And I know what speed I knew to get in. So I did. And Ali's notes on the, she says, last feed, big push to land it, Daniel. Daniel knew it. He had his determined face on. This is it. I didn't know she was taking, looking at my, describing this, but you're in that zone, aren't you? Where you just think this is it, I'm doing it. And luckily enough, or not, as the case may be, I managed to get it in and land it at Wissant, at the beach in Wissant. And that was it. As it says in the channel notes, just like that, Daniel is a channel swimmer.
Just like that. Wow.
And yeah, I know. So it was, I sort of got out and looked around. A few bemused, as ever, French tourists French people or tourists looking over at you at the wall above the above the beach and the breakwater, saying, so I think looking at you thinking, what have you just done? And I just said,
that guy looks awfully ragged. He's not sunbathing.
Yes, well, this is it. And I have to sort of say, of all the sort of motivational comments, and I'm not really into that massively, as in on the boat. Some people swear by those cards, and I had some, but it might upset a few people, as in my own family, if they listen to this. But it didn't really matter. To an extent, it was like I was going to do it or not. If a board was held up, wouldn't have made a difference. Which sounds, but it wouldn't. Anyway, and Kevin, the pilot, I remember on my last feed, sort of looked out, arm on his cabin, looked at me and he said, "You're closer to France than you are England." That was it. That was all he needed to say. So it just made me smile, after, so anyway, I landed it. It was 14 hours and 9 minutes. Ali said if it wasn't for the chop at the start and the bit at the end, I was on for a 12-hour swim, but I ended up swimming, it was 53 kilometers, so about 33 miles in the end. And it's 21 miles, isn't it? Sort of the distance.
Yeah, right.
Over.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, and that, just like that, as my sort of observer's notes say, I was a channel swimmer.
Now Dan's a channel swimmer. Are you planning to do anything else, or one and done?
Yes. Well, you know what? I in my more romantic moments with this, I'm like, yeah, that's it. I found my calling. I just loved it. I just loved the whole process. I loved everything about the swim. Even that start bit, I'm not going to sort of revise it a bit, but that first hour and a half in the dark, I just knew there was something beyond that 1.5, 2 hours in the dark that I was swimming towards, so it's getting through it. So to answer your question, yes, I'd love to do, or thinking of, not yet, in a few years, because of course, family and what have you, to maybe think about the North Channel, or
you seem like you're Channel. Cold, just the way you talked about your training. You're pretty good in the cold. Some people are like, forget about it, whereas you're like, you have the right mindset, I think, to tune into that, and that would be an awesome accomplishment.
Yeah, and Sarah's just done the 2-way, hasn't she?
I know, right?
Wow. I mean, again, just brilliant, just mind-blowing, and again, it just inspires you, those sort of things. And just listening to people on your podcast, and I'm sure she'll maybe come on and talk about it, because I read her article in a magazine about it, and you just want more of these swims, because what fascinates me about that is the temperatures and the jellies there, because they're a whole different ball game to the Channel. The Channel wasn't easy, far from it. There was some very difficult points, but I found it easy because I enjoyed it, and I'd done the training physically. I'd done absolutely everything possible. I trusted the process, as Karen had said, and I'd done everything asked of me, and what happened. I knew, you know this, if you've done your training, you arrive on the day saying, there's another lady called Helen Hislop who goes to U Swim in Manchester, who swam the channel last year, who is an amazing lady. She is. I did a lake swim in Lake Barla in Wales this year as part of my training. Karen just threw it in. I wasn't meant to do it, but there was a dropout. She phoned me first of all. Karen said, "Do you want this?" I was like, "Yeah, why not? Let's do it." So I had to drive nearly 2 hours to be in Wales at 9:30 on a Sunday morning. Dropping that on my wife at short notice was interesting. But Helen did the swim. I came second in the skins category for my age group, which I was really proud of. But I didn't do it for that. I did, it wasn't about that. It wasn't. It was just to get in another body of water and swim. I think Helen finished about half an hour or more ahead of me. So she's a fantastic swimmer. She really is. And she'd give me some really good tips as well. And it's just listening to those sorts of people. It keeps you inspired. So yeah, I'd love to do another swim. When that will be, my wife says 10 years time. I say it might be a bit shorter, but I'm certainly keeping on, swimming, and I just loved everything about it in the process. And now I go down to Salford Quays and think, oh, why not? I'll do a 10K.
Out. The little switch gets turned, and you're like, oh, I could just keep going. It's kind of exciting.
Absolutely, and those mantras that you get along the way, that, like you said, to just keep swimming and all of those, and these little things. I think any sort of message for aspiring marathons and challenge swimmers or whatever would be that take your inspiration where you can get it. Yeah, there is no
it's different
one
for everybody.
Thing.
Yeah,
exactly. Don't think there is something that if you're not doing. Like I said, I was intimidated by Dover Solo book when I read that. It was meant to inspire me. And I mean, she's a fantastic swimmer, of course, and I know she did the North Channel as well, and it's truly inspiring. There's so many, and like Kim Chambers, is it, who Kim Swims, the documentary?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Oh yeah. Wow. I used to watch that when I wasn't swimming or listening to this podcast. I'd be watching that again on a Sunday. I'd get up on a cold morning before, because invariably I would be up at 6 a.m. because my children would be up. And they'd get me up, and I'd go downstairs, get a coffee, and I'd watch that. And I'd think, if Kim can swim from the Farallon Islands to San Fran in that water with what's in there with her, and I'm worried about going around Salford Quays for 2 hours, come on, have a word with yourself, So, but yeah, you find it in different places. And my wife, by the way, feels she knows you quite well as well, because I have the podcast on in bed. So she falls to sleep to this podcast as well as me.
Oh, I love it. Well, tell her I said hello.
Yes, I certainly will.
I love the idea of kind of closing on I guess, first of all, congratulations on your.
Thank you.
On your English Channel crossing. That's an amazing achievement. And I just love thinking about, you very much hit on why I like to talk to people from all walks of life. And there was a period when I first started, and I was talking to Lynn Cox and and Sarah Thomas and all these like renowned swimmers, but I was like, wait a second, there's the person that pushes themselves to do their first 10K, or the person who started swimming when they were 55 and never had swum. But I just love to share those stories because of exactly what you said, so people can take the inspiration that resonates with them. Because at the end of the day, I really think it's like the way you were talking about your, that sunrise and how much you love that time on the water. I think I wrote about it up my last swim in my blog write-up about it. At the end, I was like, at the end of these swims, I'm awakened and I feel so much more alive, and I'm just love everybody. I have so much gratitude for the opportunity. And I just think everybody should have the opportunity to have that feeling, however they can get it. They don't have to swim. They could, walk outside and with a cup of coffee and watch the sunrise. But just the more that we can like tap into that as humans, I think that we'll all be better people. So thank you for helping me send that message out there.
Yeah, no, it does. I think that's the thing. Find that thing, whatever it may be, and and connect with it and enjoy it. And like you say, I've made some friends for, I would hope, for life, through it. And that's an amazing thing to do. Like-minded people, or not, as the case may be, and who share that sort of thing and that passion. And it's drawn a lot of people sort of together, not just swimmers. People in. Well, I remember, I swam it for charity, and the charity is called North Care. It's a charity which supports the NHS, the National Health Service in the UK, and specifically paediatric services in and around Greater Manchester. They do fantastic work. I've got a good Just Giving page down in the channel, and I'm grateful, Shannon, for you allowing me to, plug this on here. Again, the fundraising element of that is blown me away. I set a target of £1,000, and I've over £5,000 now. And, I'm sort of, again, that sort of thing. And, that's going to make a real difference as well, that money, to people. And as I said, it brings people together. And like you said, just if we all did that, and it gives you a moment to, went away on holiday this year to Anglesey, which is an island just off the coast of Wales, which is beautiful, fantastic swimming there. And I got out of the water, and there was a guy watching, I think his daughter or granddaughter. He was a Canadian guy. And he just said to me, "Oh, how far you've swam?" And I said, "Oh, I've just done a couple of kilometers, just, across the bay and back." And he just it opened up a whole conversation with him, and he told me his life story, and, his deep, and, you just don't get that sort of connection that much anymore. And it's an easy sort of way to, to be able to do that. So, yeah, and the fact that I've been able to share this story with you and finally get to speak to you and has been fantastic, and I'm very grateful, Shannon, for the opportunity.
Thank you for sharing your story with us. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you were inspired by even just a moment of this story, please share it with a friend. You never know what might push someone out of their comfort zone so that they can find out what they're capable of. And please leave a review with your podcast provider. It truly helps others discover the raw and honest stories of these amazing endurance swimmers. Thanks for listening.